This is a Bulldog Radio podcast.
The Ferris State Bulldogs have upset the nation's #2 ranked team. Wide open! Taylor is going to take this one to the house! Touchdown Bulldogs!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the most valuable sports podcast. Joe Nagy, Brandon Worth, joining you this fine morning as we're recording this. Not going to lie, Joe, did have my cup of coffee this morning.
I'm tired.
I am feeling the little kick right now, and I'm starting to feel the energy, not just because of this weekend that we have epically on deck here for Ferris State Sports, but, you know, just the coffee and the caffeine's hitting different right now. Man.
Yeah. Well, I don't drink coffee. That's the one problem. So I usually rely on just a cold glass of water to pick me up in the morning, which is a hit or miss some days. Luckily, it hit today because I don't know if I'd be able to make it to the show, to be honest with you. But, dude, we are kicking. We are ready to roll. My voice might be a little groggy, but we're going to get this thing rocking.
Yeah, and you know what it is also, Joe.
Yeah, what's up?
It's lucky number 50.
Hey-o!
Let's go.
5-0.
50 of season 4. I mean, we've made it so far, man. This has been so fun. But thank you all tuning in on WBRN or on all of our podcast platforms, Spotify,
Huge.
Apple, Amazon. You guys are the best. We have a great show for you today. Coach Doren of Ferris State Tennis is going to stop by, and we'll have a chat with him about his recruiting as well as his team season so far, as well as the Ferris State rundown, of course. And then me and Joe will make our picks for who's cutting down the nets in Houston on Monday. It's going to be a great show for sure. Starting right off here, Joe, Bulldogs scoreboard, as well as the Ferris State rundown. A lot on deck coming up this weekend. Track and field, my team will be heading over to Western Kentucky. We're actually leaving later this morning, which is why we had to move to an 8 a.m. recording session this morning. But we're making it happen. Down at Hilltopper Relays, got some of the performance lists out. Got to see them yesterday. A little bit more of a lower participant meet than we were expecting. But there's one thing that's for sure. There's going to be a lot of confidence built this weekend for these results because we are in a position where we can almost honestly win this meet. Looking at it on paper, we could win this meet.
Oh, really?
Where's team scoring?
Who's going? Who's at the meet?
There's like a couple smaller D1 schools. I mean, Western Kentucky's obviously there. There's a couple other D2 schools. Like we'll see some Grand Valley competitors, I'm sure. There'll be some Saginaw competitors individually. But as a team, I think we can really make some noise at Hilltopper this weekend. It's going to be a fun one. That one will be Friday. Hopefully it doesn't get rained out. It's supposed to thunderstorm down there tomorrow. We'll hope and pray it does not. As well as Saturday for the Hilltopper Relays. Tennis will be in action, of course, this weekend.
Absolutely.
Be there, be square. That'll be tomorrow, 10
Friday,
and 1:30.
Saturday, March 31st, April 1st, March 31st, Purdue Northwest is coming to town. Saturday, April 1st, Davenport's coming to town. It's going to be 2 great games. It's going to be 4 great matches, actually, since men's and women's are both in action. I'll be covering it. I'll be there having a great time. You should show up. Last week, there was free donuts. So I don't know if there's going to be the same thing this week or not.
Free donuts?
Maybe we can ask Coach Doren about that, what the deal was about it. But I don't know, man. It's a good time. One of the most electric games went down last week with our 5 spot for the men's with Alessandro against one of the Wayne State guys who clinched it for us for the W. And I think it's going to be more of the same because Purdue Northwest and Davenport, 2 good teams, and we're ready to roll.
That's right. Van Brocklin's Donuts? Question mark?
I don't know. I grabbed a glazed donut.
Oh, boy.
I didn't want to be that guy that was just chilling by the donuts the whole time.
Anyway, softball will also be in action this weekend at Grand Valley State. It's our friends from down south.
Take a bone.
And in Allendale, April 1st at 1 and 3, followed up by a home game on Sunday, Davenport. We will be hosting down at the Bulldogs softball complex. 1 and 3 o'clock the start times on Sunday. Going to be great matches and games all the way around, as well as golf will be traveling early next week, Monday through, I believe it is Tuesday. Women's NC4K Classic, men's Music City Invitational. 2 good overall tournaments in prep play for Coach Stark's squads. But that's the Ferris State rundown. And without further ado, Joe,
let's swing into Coach Doren's interview.
Now joining us in studio, head coach of Bulldog Tennis, Coach Doren stopped by. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Coach, thank you so much for coming on. GLIAC schedule just started up for the team. Men's got a big win over Wayne State. We're a little bit of a skid. I mean, just kind of talk about how the season's been going so far for you guys and what you're expecting for these next couple of games.
I mean, overall, the season's been going great for both teams. The women are in a little bit of a skid right now, but that's just something based on scheduling that I did before the season, and really scheduled very difficult. And we hope to come out better on the other side. Scheduling this tough competition right away. It was hoping to prepare us for the GLIAC schedule, but yeah, overall, I mean, it's been a great start. The women had some big wins at the beginning of the season, and we're hoping to just kind of continue that on, and what's going to be a very quick month of April probably that gets us to the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when it comes to scheduling, I mean, certainly, especially that Florida trip, a lot of nationally ranked teams. When it comes to your mind as a coach, what do you necessarily go through when you're looking at how am I going to schedule the season, especially now when you got a big GLIAC schedule, like you just mentioned, finishing up at the end of the year?
Yeah, I take the mindset that, I like my players to be able to see what's out there and what the real next level is, because I think we have a team that is that next level. But when they don't play that same level every day in competition in the Midwest, they just don't get to see it or kind of see something to strive for. So I schedule very difficult when we go down there. And it kind of gives you a little bit of a gut punch to be able to see where you're at and what we're made of. And yeah, it made for a little bit more difficult for the women to start the GLIAC. But, going into GLIAC, it's improved every year. When I first got here 5 years ago, the conference just wasn't this deep. Both teams I had back then, we competed, but the teams we have now would dominate, just 5 years ago. So the conference is on an upswing. I think the Midwest, when it comes to tennis, is getting a little bit more respect. In the men's side, I think we have 4 teams ranked in the top 20 right now, which is just crazy. And for the Midwest, I mean, it's typical. You'll see that we have a pretty international flair on our team. And when I'm on the phone talking to these international students, when I say what the weather is in Michigan, sometimes they're like, oh man, that school down in Florida looks a little more enticing. So that's one of the hardest things that we have to battle. But, we have a lot of benefits too of having our own indoor facility. So that's a big, attraction to some of these, student athletes, because they get to have unlimited practice, not have to worry about traveling to an indoor facility somewhere else. But yeah, it's been difficult, but I think that, we've embraced it and we're getting after it.
Yeah, and you talk about recruiting. Tennis is one of the coolest situations because you have so many international athletes. Can you kind of talk about what that process is of getting in contact with some of those international players and being able to kind of finish that logistically from start to finish to get them to Big Rapids?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of the people, around think that I don't even recruit, Americans. I spend a lot of time recruiting Americans. It's a little bit more difficult. I think that for some reason in some of the areas in the United States, some of the American tennis players, just have this thing that, it's a pride thing or an ego thing that Division I is the only option. And, I'll talk to quite a few kids and, around here and around the Midwest that wouldn't even make our lineup, but just feel that they have to, reach that goal. It's a little bit different with international students. They're just driven to want to come and perform. And, obviously getting the education is a big thing for them, but they're just so driven to want to just compete at any level and just be part of a team because it's something new to them. Yeah. A lot of these international students, they don't have high school tennis like we do here in the United States. So it's different. But when it comes to recruiting international students, I get probably 30 emails every day from international students all over the world. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And, and a lot of them, you can tell that they've been bulk mail. They just send to 100 coaches a day. But I love the ones that are a little more personal, that shows they did a little research into the team. And then, there's what they do in the international students is they hire agents. It's a little different than agents, here in the United States paying an athlete to play. They pay an agent to help them find schools. So what happens is I have a handful of agents, in Europe that I trust that kind of know our team and know me. So they only contact me with the players that they think that would be right for my team. And then I have 1 or 2 in Canada. And I'm sure you've noticed I have, I think, 6 different Canadians now between the men's and women's team. And Ferris has a great deal for Canadians, as far as in-state tuition compared to international tuition. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing. A lot of these schools, struggle if, typically about $10,000 more for an international student to come to a public school in the United States. So, for us to be able to have the influx of Canadians has really made a huge difference. And it just, now when I go to Canada or I call someone in Canada, they know because they know all the players on my team.
Absolutely. And I think especially we've talked to a couple players, obviously we had Yannick on last week and hit his perspective, not on the athletic side of recruiting, but also the academic side of where I know, especially Yannick was mentioning about how he wanted to play tennis, especially at that competitive collegiate level, but also be able to get that academic success at the same time, which it seems like a lot of the other international players might necessarily just come over to play tennis and then just go play professionally, but instead they can get a degree here.
Yeah, I think there's a point in everyone's kind of playing career in any sport that they realize that the professional side of it it's tough. It's one of those hard realities that we think that we really want to go. And there's still are options. And we've had guys come to Ferris that have tried it on, trying to make the tour. But in general, they all realize how important the academic side is. And we've had a lot of great success with the academic side here at Ferris, as far as, our specialty degrees, for, almost 40 years now, the professional tennis management program has been one of my biggest recruiting tools. When I get to call someone and say, hey, you want to study tennis in college? And most people are like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm a graduate of the program. And, I go on to tell them what my roommates are doing in the industry. Some are coaching, college tennis. Some are coaching at country clubs. One of my roommates is a big wig with Wilson. So, just the academic side of it is huge. What I really love is we have a very vast variety of, on a small team, different degrees. And it makes it exciting for them to be able to, not only are they meeting new cultures, but they're meeting people that are going to do a lot of different things.
Once again, a big thanks to Coach Doren for coming on the show. Always a great pleasure to have coaches on the show, something that we don't always do. Mainly we get players, some of the athletic staff, but for sure it's awesome to get Coach Doren on to hear everything about the tennis team going on. So we're going to hop into the more extended Ferris State Sports Report. We'll start with tennis, obviously. As one does. Purdue Northwest is coming to town Friday, March 31st. Tomorrow for us, yesterday for you guys. This one's going to be interesting because Purdue Northwest, not the greatest GLIAC team. They're near the bottom of it at the standings, but I think that's going to be a pretty solid test because, we're at home. It's going to be a little bit different. Women are coming off a loss, trying to pick up a win. I think it's been 6 straight losses, but the thing is for the women, it's not like they've just been outplayed every time. It's been close ones. Especially with Wayne State, there's a lot of solid play. The injury bug caught them a little bit, which was kind of tough, but I think this is going to be a solid bounce back game for the women. And then it's just going to be a solid game for the men because they just got to keep on trucking, get that momentum going, and they're going to be in a solid spot.
Yeah, looking back at last year, the men certainly took care of business against the Pride of Purdue Northwest, 7-0 clean sweep, and obviously the way that they've been playing, not necessarily trying to jinx or anything, but I think you can definitely expect a really good result similar to that number this weekend for how well they've played. Of course, I'll knock on wood just to be sure, as well as...
I think we got just this massive wood desk right here.
Yeah, that is nice to have this huge wooden desk to be able to... make sure that we back up our claims with the luck of luck. But also for the women, got the win against them last year, 5-2 the score was. So definitely looking forward to seeing some of that success carry over. And just like you mentioned, Joe, the women definitely have played pretty well over the last couple of weeks in consideration of the 6 losses because they've played some really tough teams, especially we mentioned in Florida, as well as the opener of the GLIAC slate against some really, really good and quality ranked teams. And now this one's really getting back to the nitty gritty, back to the fundamentals a little bit, try to break that little skid. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to do that. Purdue Northwest is a team that we certainly have the talent to beat on the men's and the women's side. And obviously a lot of these players from last year have experienced that win over Purdue Northwest. So you have that little bit of confidence in your back pocket. And especially being on your home floor, obviously we know how fast our court is, and that plays into our advantage compared to some other teams in the GLIAC like Purdue. I think that's definitely going to bring another level of confidence as well. So we're definitely throwing a different lineup than we did last year as well too. We obviously Sophie DeVito was there last year as well as Kennedy Dumas, but a lot of the other players now haven't played it. We didn't play in this match last year, so that's even a bonus as well. You get to see the Hernandez twins are obviously going to be in the lineup, I would assume, going into this weekend for sure. And then obviously you got Morgan Waller back from injury, so it's going to be a whole new lineup, a whole new slate, but you still have the experience of that win. And I think that's really going to propel this team forward to 2 wins this weekend. I knock on wood just to be sure, but Davenport, that's certainly going to be an interesting match because they've definitely been a team that's kind of been a little bit known to play a little bit of spoiler a little bit here as of recently. So, hey, you never know what might happen this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And both Purdue Northwest teams didn't get that down south trip. They've been playing more people in our region, like as well as some other Missouri teams, kind of like that. So it's interesting because they don't have as much of the, resume, as you could say, as us. However, in GLIAC play, they are 2-0 for men's, and then for women's, they are 2-1. So they're not half bad at the moment. But I think it's going to be a solid spot because men's, we got a chance this week to take Soul top spot of the GLIAC if we get 3 wins, because then we'll be the only undefeated team in the conference, as Davenport right now is sitting at 2-0. But overall, I feel like we have the best win percentage of the overall record so far for men's, and then women's we're kind of a little bit near the halfway point when it comes to win record, but I think we're still going to be in a pretty solid spot.
Yeah, certainly going to be fun. Go to the Racket Complex, cheer on the Bulldog tennis squad. They've been doing some good work and deserve the fan base to prove
there
it.
might be free donuts. So
I know. I'm getting jealous now that I'm leaving and I can't get
but I mean, you got that gluten intolerance, so I don't know if you could have tossed one down.
Yeah, that is true. But the sound of a donut sounds really good.
You've had a donut before, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just checking. I don't know what goes on with your gluten intolerance. I don't know if you get an upset tummy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't need to be
if your tummy
describing how that goes into my digestive system. So we'll leave that off the podcast. But anyway, moving forward here, softball this weekend. Tough test right out of the gate, obviously down in Allendale. Obviously, the rivalry as itself it makes it a tough game nonetheless. But I mean, Grand Valley is a top nationally ranked team, so I think that's going to be a big test for Coach Schumann's squad. And I mean, especially they played very well against Saginaw on Tuesday. Didn't necessarily get the outcomes. I mean, I look back at those games, and you really were in the perfect spot. It seemed like in multitude of those games where we had the lead up halfway through the game. Obviously, in that first game, we obviously were in the position, just gave up a little bit too much in the 7th, and that kind of cost us there. But we were in the position as well in that second game, got up early, just couldn't quite have an answer after that pitching change. So those things just happen in the sport of softball, and it's really unfortunate because that team was playing really well, and they really felt like they were in a position to get a sweep there. I know, Joe, you were there and you saw that firsthand, and it's just really frustrating because you see how well they're playing, but just the numbers really just aren't getting back in the win column, and that's just something tough to see.
What do they mean?
What do the numbers mean? We don't know.
Oh, you Call of Duty players out there.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people got that reference.
Probably
Somehow
not.
I did.
Probably not.
I'm like the
I was
last
gonna say you never played Call of Duty.
No,
so.
I don't know how I got that reference. I mean, obviously
it's a pretty funny. It's a pretty. I mean, it's a meme reference, but
you have memery all over the internet. So, but yeah, softball, yeah, for sure.
It's kind of yeah, like you said though. I mean, this was tough because both of these games they were right in it right till the end. I like both times. I mean, it was just. I think first game was right at the end of the game in the 7th inning. We were at 2 outs. They had a big 2-out rally. We got one back in the bottom of the 7th, but it just wasn't enough. And that was kind of a tough one because, Saginaw, they had situations where you definitely could tell that they were a beatable team. And there was times where we definitely looked like the better team of the day, but it just came down to the end of the game or end of the night where, it just was a tough looks for the team because we couldn't really catch up with their pitching a little bit. We did get a little bit more aggressive on the base pass. There was a lot more hit and runs. We were able to execute those plays a lot better than what we did against, who did we play last week?
You talking about Northwood?
Northwood, yeah. I was going to say a GLIAC opponent, but then it wasn't. But Wayne State as well, we were able to execute a lot of those hit and runs and stuff a lot better. So that's one of the positives of these two games. It was also, a pretty slight good thing about it because it was moved to Ferris at the end of basically
something going on with their
day
fields
or something
down
like that.
there.
Saginaw had a weird thing, so it was a little bit different to kind of just get prepared for that because some just random stuff came up. But I think the big thing that you can take away from this as fans, as coaches, and as players is that they execute a lot more of the plays really well. They were aggressive on the base path. Yeah, again, early in the morning, voice. The talking part's going to be struggling today. A little bit loopy as well.
Yikes.
But anyways, I think you can take a lot of things away from this game as positives, and then you just got to let that run into this Grand Valley game that's happening tomorrow? Saturday,
Sunday? Yeah. Those 2 days. Yeah.
I keep thinking it's Friday today, man.
It does feel like a Friday, but yeah, Grand Valley's a very good hitting team. Pitching wise, Hannah beat us one of the best in the GLIAC. So definitely going to be a tough task, but I think definitely this team can definitely put up a really good fight. And I think that we can sort of surprise some people because it really hasn't been for a while that we really haven't broke out into a big game in a while. Obviously there was a couple games we got the win, obviously Wayne State were some of those good games. And that was the last games we played on the road. So hopefully we can keep that momentum rolling here in this GLIAC schedule. Moving forward now, going into not tennis this weekend, but track and field, more in depth. Obviously the Hilltopper relays.
To us, Brandon. What's going on?
So this is going to be an interesting meet, obviously, because it's a 2-day. A lot of athletes are going to be doubling down. They're going to be doing 2 events in each part of the day, or I should say 2 over on the weekend. So 1 each day mostly, but it's definitely going to get. How does it feel to run outdoors and on a 400 meter track is really kind of the big time basis of this weekend. And I think that's going to be certainly going to be fun to see how a lot of that adaptation comes. Cause I mean, we've been running through the thick of it partially. Like yesterday it was snowing.
Slammed right now.
It was gross. Like,
side note, I woke up yesterday morning. I was like, today's going to be a great day. I am softball game later today. It's just going to be a solid win. Like Wednesday's my easy days, right? And then I show up, walk downstairs, look out my big window, snow. And I was like, yeah, today's the worst.
Yeah, it's, yeah, that's not necessarily the best thing to wake up to in the month of March. But anyway, it's going to be a great weekend, I believe. I think it's going to be, I think you're going to see a lot of top numbers this weekend, especially from a lot of the underclassmen as well, just because a lot for some of the freshmen, first taste of outdoor and really in that travel mindset, because obviously indoor is a much different season based on our schedule. We don't travel as much in indoor. We stay a lot closer to home. And then in outdoor, obviously we get to travel a little bit more. So getting that kind of groove together for some of these big meets for travel, obviously the routine is going to be crucial. Obviously the weather's going to be different, but the biggest thing too is just going to be that experimentation of events, obviously, because not everybody's going to be running their primetime event, or they're going to be running that primetime event as well as something else on top of it, right? Some guys will be doing the 5K 15 double. Some people are going to be doing new events over outdoors, like the 400 meter hurdles is one, obviously moving back to the 100 dash instead of the 60. So those are going to be adjustments. Obviously for throws, you're going to have a couple new faces in weight throw in those different events like hammer throw and such forth. So going to be just experimentation this weekend. And this is a really kind of low caliber meet, not necessarily saying it's like the worst meet in the world, but it's definitely going to be a very competitive where you will guaranteed see Bulldog success, even a couple individual wins, maybe even multiple individual wins in big numbers. So should be a really good weekend. Looking forward to it. And that'll propel us into the thick of the outdoor schedule coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a little bit different with the weather, though. Friday is supposed to rain a little bit down there in Bowling Green. It's going to be 72, and the precipitation, Brandon, is going to be a little bit rough.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit rough. So also shout out to golf. They will be on the road this weekend, so wish them the best of luck. Coach Stark's crew starting to get back outdoors, so looking forward to seeing their success, and we'll make sure to get that coverage for you next week on the recap show. But we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we got bracketology and our picks for the Final Four. Stay tuned. Back we go. March Madness here as we continue onward with this episode. Thanks for all tuning in for the rest of this episode on our podcasting platforms. Big Final Four this weekend here, Joe.
Big time, dude.
I mean, we got some chaos going on. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought at the start of this whole thing that it would be in the national championship or in the Final Four? Miami, UConn, San Diego State, and FAU.
Not me.
2 5 seeds.
Yeah.
In the Final Four.
How about a 9 seed? How about a 12 seed? I don't know.
How about, why don't we just toss it out? Why don't we get Howard in the Final Four? Is what it is. I mean, this is just wild to me how that is actually a thing. But dude, I don't know. This is going to be, as much as I don't know the players on these teams with the Final Four, I'm actually really excited because I feel like this is going to be some of the better basketball that we're seeing so far this season or this tournament. Because, I mean, especially that UConn-Miami game, 2 pretty high-scoring offenses. I mean, UConn put a 70 spot against St. Mary's, but they've been near 90 points, put the brakes on Gonzaga. So I think this is going to be interesting because Miami, too, I mean, they put up near 90 points every time other than that first game against Drake. So it's going to be a high scoring game for that one. I don't really know too much about FAU and San Diego State though.
Yeah, I'm sure you're loving that Gonzaga loss though.
I'm loving it, dude. I was watching that game and then you and me were texting back and forth. Now we were. Like, Gonzaga's a fraud. Told you. I said it was going to catch up sooner or later. They can never make it past the Elite Eight. I'm telling you what, that Sweet 16 and Elite Eight is their kryptonite. All right, I'll say that. Because they can make through round of 6-4. They'll be able to put the brakes on somebody that's like a 10 seed or something they got to play, which is interesting because they had to play TCU, but they barely beat TCU and barely beat UCLA. So, I mean, still one blue blood, at least that they beat with UCLA, but still, like that was music to my ears to hear that final call of UConn 82, Gonzaga 54. That was beautiful.
This is hilarious. So I just looked up a story here on ESPN, the Final Four picks for 2023. And this was made all the way back on November 7th of 2022. You ready to hear the Final Fours for a lot of these guys?
What's up?
The first one, North Carolina, Houston, Kentucky, UCLA. Right? North Carolina wasn't even in the tournament. Won.
Tough.
Houston made it all the way to the Elite Eight. Kentucky out in the second round. UCLA out by
Elite Eight.
Gonzaga.
Sweet 16.
Yeah. Another one has Baylor, Tennessee, Houston, Duke. That one's not crazy. Baylor obviously got beat by Creighton. Tennessee ended up losing to FAU. And then obviously with Houston and then Duke losing to Tennessee. Then Joe Lunardi, Kentucky, Indiana, Virginia, and Creighton. He got one of them right with Creighton. Well, there was an Elite Eight, almost. So now that doesn't even count. So none of these guys got a single one right a year ahead of time.
It's wild that like everybody is so bad at it. And then this like you give a bracket to somebody who's never watched college sports, never watched college basketball or anything, and it's most likely going to be better than somebody who spends hours of research on these.
Facts. My bracket was trashed.
It's wild to me how that's even a thing, because that's just like, it shouldn't even be that shouldn't even be possible, I feel like. But it's just wild how March Madness, especially basketball, is just like, you can have somebody who has, just a couple guys who are, I don't know, you can have a Fairleigh Dickinson type situation. And that's just insane to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's March Madness. So without further ado, we're getting to our picks here. I know me and Joe have already done this for all those Torchy fans out there.
Fair State Torch.
I'm assuming that's been put in already, but I haven't quite looked as of yet, to be honest. We just wrote it and didn't even think about it from there on out.
I also didn't think about it after that.
Yeah, I don't actually think if it's up yet. So you're going to hear it first right here on the podcast. So, there we go.
Sir.
So our picks, I know me and Joe have differing picks here. I'll start with mine. San Diego State FAU. I think this is going to be a really low scoring game. Just the fact that Florida Atlantic is very gritty. They like to rebound. And San Diego State obviously wants to play defense, right? I looked up this stat. Opponents from 3-point range. You want to guess against the Aztecs what their percentages was?
What's that?
17.
Ew.
That's gross. And I think that will slow down Florida Atlantic just enough. I originally had 72-65 in there, but I'm going to go personally with a 10 under for each. So I'm going to go 62-55 potentially as a score. I think that could be a little bit more realistic, but actually, never mind. I'll go 72-65. I'll keep it with what I had written on paper, but I could anticipate this game being a lot more lower scoring.
In San Diego's favor?
In San Diego's favor.
Here's the thing, man. San Diego has had, out of the Final Four teams, the easiest path to the Final Four. You've had to play Charleston, Furman, Creighton, and you barely beat Creighton.
Wait, what? They beat
San Diego State?
They beat Bama.
Sorry, yeah, Bama. Oh, yeah, sorry. The one seed. I will say that. That was a good game. I will say that. But comparatively to everybody else, they have had the easiest spot. Like, I'm not saying that it was just like a cakewalk, but comparatively, they have the easiest one. Yeah. Also,
FAU's
let's not forget FAU is also 35-3. So
that is true. They win.
If you're like, I said this in my article, I don't care if you're a 16, 15, 14, 13. If you have over 30 wins in one season and you're at 38 right now, you have a chance to go put up 40 wins in a season. Wild. And you also have a really good defense that's been able to kind of keep offenses low. I mean, you got Tennessee to 55 points. I mean, you got a solid defense picking up there. San Diego is coming off that tough offensive performance against Creighton where they only put up 57. I think you're going to see FAU keep that going, and they're going to win the whole thing. Wow. For me, I got FAU win the whole thing. Me.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
I feel like that's not as ludicrous as you think it is, but
I don't think so either, but I think
I'm gonna
the
say
fact you said it.
FAU is going to win this one 75 to like 71.
Okay, there you go. Final Four in game 2. I'll release my winner here as well. UConn, Miami. I think this is a national championship type caliber basketball game.
This could be, yeah.
This is going to be a playmaking show. It's going to be fantastic. I put on there, fans of confident offensive basketball are drooling over this pairing. I think that's a very accurate opening lead because it's going to be that good. Both these teams are red hot. They've taken care of a lot of these really good teams on the way. And I think UConn has been flat out dominating. Miami knows how to win against a lot of these good teams. I think it's going to be a really fun basketball game. I have been on the UConn train since January.
That is true.
And will I jump off? Absolutely not. I want UConn to win this game over Miami. 84-82 is the score I had. I think it's going to be that fun of a basketball game. Hopefully that is the case. Hopefully I'm not wrong and I hyped you guys up for no reason. But I think it's going to be a fantastic basketball game. I really think that UConn, their 3-point shooting could be the difference in this game with guys like Andrew Hawkins. Those guys are going to absolutely fill it. So I think it's going to be a fun basketball game for sure. That leads me to UConn against San Diego State in the Natty. I don't think it's close.
UConn's going to put the beat on them.
Yeah. I had 14 as the deficit, and that might be a little generous.
For real?
Honestly.
Dude. It's going to be like a
deficit.
Michigan-Villanova spot. Where we got smoked that one time.
That
Tough
was
looks.
Gross, but
UConn is good, though. I'll tell you what.
I don't think San Diego State's offense can answer UConn at all. Like, they might be able to slow down UConn, but they're still going to put up 70, but San Diego State's not going to be able to score that much.
The thing is, with UConn, their defense is legit. However, Miami is one of those quantity over quality type programs when they're putting up threes and shots, obviously. Because if they get hot, Miami's going to win it because they're going to put up 10, 15 threes, most likely, as a team.
They're good shot makers.
UConn, though, if you go into it, they've had each win by a margin of at least 15 this tournament against good teams.
I believe the actual total through the 4 games is 90.
Well, they beat
85.
They beat Iona by 24, Arkansas by 15, and crushed Gonzaga by 28.
Yeah, and then the opening round game against Iona, right?
Yeah.
So that would be
15. Yeah, they won by 24 in that one.
Yeah, I looked it up.
And beat St. Mary's team.
That's the one that was missing.
Up 70 against them, and they held them to
like 50 something, right?
Something like that.
It was double digits. I think I looked up the margin. It was like plus 90, the second biggest number of all that time. And it's only the second team to ever be in that top 5 in margin. That's not a John Wooden team. That's crazy.
Insane. That is wild. I'm going to shock you here, Brandon. I'm going to take Miami.
I'm not surprised. I think this can be a close game.
I thought you were going to be more surprised by it. I think so too. The one thing is if Miami can hit the 3, it's game over. Because they're going to be just running the game. And I don't think UConn's going to be able to pick it up because in the interior, UConn's going to be able to just hold them down. So they're going to try to move it around and get that 3 ball going because Miami right now has just been wild. They're either a 90-point team or they're like a 65-point team, and their defense has to pick up the slack. They've also had one of the toughest routes of the Final 4 teams, and I think that's going to show against UConn because they've had a spot where they've had to play they've had to play Houston at the start, beat them by a solid amount. They had to play Drake, which for us, that was one of our ones to watch out for the upset because we thought Drake was going to be pretty solid. They had to play Indiana, who was a team that beat Purdue already twice this season. So they were no slouch. And then you had to go against Texas. So you had to play a 4, a 1, and a 2 in the last 3 rounds to be able to make it here. So I think with them, they're time tested, they're battle ready. And I think that 3 ball is going to really come in clutch there. I'm going to go Miami in the Final 4, which leaves Miami versus FAU in the final. I think even though that Miami wants to make up for their early loss in the ACC tournament, FAU is taking it all.
Wow.
And let me tell you what, dude, FAU is going to take it. They're going to set the record for lowest seed to ever win the tournament, and it's going to be a perfect cap to one of the craziest years of March Madness that we've seen.
That's awesome. Those are our picks. Bet on them, but don't blame us if you're wrong.
They say if you're a betting man, bet on our picks, but if you lose, then you did not bet on our picks.
Thanks, Deion Sanders. Anyway, thanks for a great show, guys.
Hey, thanks, guys.
That's been great. So be sure to Spotify on subscribe. Subscribe on
Spotify, and then subscribe on Subscribe.
There we go. Subscribe on all of our platforms. Check out the YouTube channel. Follow us on social media. And until next time.
Take care, everybody.